One. Hello and welcome to a new episode. All right. I'm just so excited. Okay. Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Sovereign Society podcast. I am beyond thrilled, beyond thrilled for this conversation because this is my brother here. I have the amount of love I have for this man here. I'm like getting choked up. I've seen him, he's seen me when like we were two lost kids at Chapman University, trying to figure out what is life? What is the meaning of life? And so today's guest is Ryan Fontana, and man, to see the evolution of this man, and I know he's seen my evolution, and just to see where we're going and how we are stepping up to really, we are hearing the call to speak up, to show up, to live authentically, to live with integrity. I think more than anything is just living with that integrity. And so I'm just so excited for him because you're going to hear so much about his transformation, but like I've seen it for the past 8 years. And so it's just been amazing to watch. He's seen me at my absolute rock bottom. He's seen me in all the layers and all of the colors of Sabrina. And he's one of the few people I still really connect with and talk to from school that are like, okay, we're on the same frequency. We're on this train together and we're just like soaring up. And so I'm just so grateful. And this is why I'm so stoked I have fucking men on this podcast now. Yes, because there are so many amazing men in my life. And I just really am so excited to be showcasing more of their stories, their journeys, and how they've reclaimed their sovereignty and are just really showing up in the world doing incredible things. So Ryan, thank you so much for being here and for being you.
Thank you, Sabrina. Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be here. And we have really been through quite the transformation, watching yours and also mine. It's really cool that we get this opportunity to drop in about it.
Yes. Are you hearing me? Can you hear me? I feel like we're so high vibe that our video keeps getting cut out. It's amazing.
Yeah, that happens.
So anyways, I just would love for you to share a little bit about your story because you started first of all, he was the president of his fraternity. Let's just go there. And then he was like the cool DJ on campus. And then he was touring the world as Sex Panther. Yeah. And then the shift happened.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything you said is true. I mean, I grew up my whole life and I was always, I always wanted to be like this like cool party guy. And, with president of the fraternity or I was just turned on by certain things. And, when I got out of college, I started, a DJ duo called Sex Panther and was touring around the world like really quickly and did that for like 4 years. And it was awesome. It was one of the most fun periods of my life for sure. It was like my childhood dream came true, to be like a rock star and to live that lifestyle. And am I breaking up?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, to live this like rock star lifestyle. And it was everything I thought I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And then the universe had different plans, had different plans for me. And I started to have a bit of a spiritual awakening that came through my body shutting down. After a night of drinking, I would wake up the next morning and I would feel this tingly numbness sensation in my lower back. And this sensation would build and creep up over the top of my head to my face, to the point in the attack in which I couldn't move my mouth or my eyes. I felt like I was having a stroke. And I went to the hospital a couple times for it. I had about 13 attacks over the course of a year. And finally, on the last one, I'll never forget, I was in the ambulance in Vegas after a show that we played. And it was the worst attack I had yet. And I remember laying there in the stretcher in the ambulance going, why do I keep doing this to myself? Like, why don't I just listen to my body? and just stop drinking. And so I did. And that was the first time that I was going and playing shows completely sober. And I was finally able to see the energies I was surrounding myself with, the relationships I was kind of creating in my life, and more importantly, the man that I was becoming. And it was a really clear wake up of like, wow, I'm not actually, I'm just as secure as I was in the beginning, even though I'm famous and successful or whatever you want to call it. And there was just a different sort of authenticity and realness to who Ryan Fontana actually was beneath the facade of Sex Panther. And it got to a certain point where I could no longer ignore the calling or the feeling, and I just had to walk away from that career. So I, told my management, my agency, and my partner that I was going to go travel for a bit, and I just peaced out, basically. And it kicked me off on an incredible journey and a really challenging 3 years, what I call the dark night of the soul. And it's actually it's kicked me out only about a year ago, to the point now where I'm living a way more fulfilled and authentic life than I ever have. And I'm serving powerfully and helping to usher in a higher consciousness, not just for myself, but for my friends, my family, and for the world at large. And that is an incredible feeling.
Oh, I can cry. I'm just so proud of you. It's been so amazing to see this transformation.
Yeah.
And, I was just talking to a girlfriend before jumping on this call, and we're just talking about, she's a starseed too, who's like seeing what's going on in the world. And there's so many men right now that just, we can see that they need, and they're ready for that support and that love. And so I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing with Preston and everyone with Man Cave, and just your overall authentic expression of who you are and what you are here to help serve. Because right now there's a time where things are shifting. And I know you probably feel that too.
Oh yeah. I feel like the old structures that they served us to a point. I like to look at it culturally. This is something that's been blowing my mind a bit, where I find that what happens in the microcosm in our own journey individually is happening in the collective as well. Mm-hmm. And so as we go through like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? As we go through the first stage of like survival, and we move into higher stages like socialization, community, and achievement, we then break through into the higher realms of needs, which are self-actualization. And I feel like as a society, we went through all those stages, like World War II time in the 40s, like we were going through survival. We keep going through the 70s into socialization. And as we get into the 90s, when the economy was booming, we were in that esteem sort of achievement phase of like, look at all we've built and look what we can do, and let's like create a bunch of materialism stuff. It was all like what was inspired at the time. But we get to a certain point, just like we did in our own lives and careers, where it's not actually fulfilling and it needs to shift and change. And it's how quickly you let go of the old and embrace the new and what wants to come through, because that's the journey right there. And that's what we're doing. I feel like collectively is there's a lot of holding on to the old ways. Mm-hmm. And it's very clear that we need to shift, and that's what all of us are feeling and trying to anchor in in this reality. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely feel like that shift has to happen, because things are, even like structures and systems are shifting. The way we have been taught of how light works or consciousness is based off of these older books and things like that, but we are constantly going through these upgrades. Like, we are upgrading at a rapid fucking rate right now. Like, anyone that I talk to that is conscious and aware and is part of like my small tribe of light leaders, star seeds, they're like, dude, these shifts are fucking intense right now. We are shifting into that because we are literally transmuting the old codes from these older dimensions, from these older ways of being, because a lot has shifted since the 2012 Mayan calendar too. So I feel like the part of us to really move forward to really be successful with that is to keep in that space of integrity. And so we have these ideas of what we think we need to be to fit in a crowd. But the more you just allow yourself to be who you are, you will be attracting more opportunities and situations and people that are in that alignment.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And then it becomes the game of how many of your unique individual pieces can you combine into one thing that's so uniquely you that you're the only one who can do it.
Right. Because now there's like, this is the Aquarian age we are in now, the golden era, like what I like to call it. Because I feel like the light is gold. It's more of a gold light. And even chakra systems are shifting. Like everything is shifting from what we've learned and what we've known about consciousness and things like that, because there's the lower frequencies and vibrations understand that language now. So it's like, how do we continue to rise up and continue to align to that space of truth in a way that is in alignment with the highest benevolence of all and to the integrity of who we are at our core? Mm-hmm. I laugh because I love having these conversations. It's really funny. So yeah.
I wish we could have had this. I wish we could have snapshotted to this, like, if we could just fly on the wall this dialogue between us and what you just said, and we could like video message it to ourselves back in college, like at a party, and you'd be like, hey, really quickly, I want you to like see this video conversation you're gonna have in 2018. Imagine what we would say if we looked at it. Like
hanging around the pool at the TJ Mansion, like having this conversation. Yeah.
Totally. Reality is a motherfucker, huh?
Yeah, it's really funny. It's hilarious.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so you're one of my first men of many that I will have on the podcast, and I grew up as one of the boys and all of that, and I really understand a lot of the men's psyche and understanding of the men because I grew up around a lot of men, but I'm still not a man. So as a woman, I can only comprehend so much. I mean, the thing that's really different is like, yes, there is some brain chemistry and genitalia, but other than that, we are all souls here. So it's really interesting because as I continue to up-level my level and awareness of consciousness and existence and upgrading into these systems that kind of have never really been experienced before. I'm in this space where I am just so open to hearing people and seeing people for where they are, but also doing this space where I'm not allowing myself, I choose to not lower my integrity or who I am or dim my light to be able to help other people feel comfortable. So how are you seeing this with the men that you've been working with, and you're in like conscious men groups and things like that? How are you seeing the trajectory and the playing field shifting in life right now?
Be more specific so I know how to answer the question.
Yeah, how are you seeing like community coming together? How are you seeing men waking up? Because there's a lot of men that are having to restructure the idea of masculinity from what they've been programmed and conditioned to believe.
Yeah. I mean, it's become really clear that the traditional form of masculinity that we were taught is no longer serving us or society. You know, like the big boys don't cry and don't be a wussy and just all this stuff that's about repressing emotions and acting one way and completely inauthentic. It's one of those things. The beautiful part about, evolution is that you can't ignore truth, right? The truth will always rise to the surface. And so it's just a matter of time as we start to shift things where men are starting to just show up for the work more because they realize that the old way they've been doing things isn't really working for them. Right. And that can look like a lot of different forms. For some men, their relationship dissolves. For others, they, make millions of dollars and they're completely unhappy. Right. There's so many ways that that symptoms can show up. But what is true is that the women around the world, especially conscious women, are asking, begging, pleading for men to start to show up differently. Right? women have been showing up for the inner work for a long time. And you go to any personal development thing, it's like
Most
90%.
women. Yeah.
I walk in there and it's just like, whoa, who are you? Like, wow, like what a specimen. Right? I'm like,
yeah.
guys, follow me. Like, this is awesome. Let's go. But yeah, it's about doing the work. And here's the cool thing about, consciousness and, whether you're into yoga or you're into Kundalini or you're doing seminars and workshops, the shine does not lie. Right. So like the way that you look, Sabrina, like your transformation, you embody it. Like you are magnificent. Like you've transformed so much, and people can look at you and just see you and be like, damn, like, what did you do? And you're like, well, let me tell you. And people exchange it. Yeah, have a seat. How much time do you have?
Yeah.
Like, what substances are you comfortable putting in your body?
I love you, Ryan.
Yeah. But I mean that, like, and I've shifted so much. The presence that I can hold now and the just who I be has shifted so much from the work I've done. And people can see that. And I find people come up to me all the time, and men specifically, are like, yo, like, what do you, like, you got something that I want, and like, how do I get that?
Mm-hmm. Which is beautiful, because that gives an opportunity for it to be permission based rather than like throwing it on them. Like, this is what you need to do, rather than allowing that to be the invitation, to come in, which is part of the free will that we are all gifted. Because I feel like there's could be that history of evangelicalism where it's like shoving it down your throat and like things like that. And it's like, yo, that is energy that I don't want. No, thank you.
Yeah.
So well, it's part of choice too.
100%. And I've evolved in that. I think we all do as healers or coaches, where in the beginning, it comes from a good place. You're so excited about what you found that you want everyone to be able to have it. And so you're just trying to share it, and like, don't realize the power of permission, right? And asking, or having, or just being the embodiment of it and letting people ask you. A lot of, like, I feel like we go through these stages where you're like the born again Christian, but like the new age version. And it's just like, let me tell you about all this stuff, and but you're not embodying it yet. You're just talking about it. Right. And then there becomes the point where I feel like I've gotten to where you realize you don't even need to prove or teach anything. You just like be, and the right people want to ask you questions. And then if they're open to receive, you can share, or actually you just ask them questions and they find themselves.
Because it's just a reflection, and you're holding space. And I've just come, like, what I've realized is like those people that are coming to me are somewhere where I've already been.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
like you attract like clients who have the same like shadows or like patterns that you've had. And it's like, there's this odd familiarity where they're like, I'm just attracted to you for whatever reason. And then you start going deeper, and it's like, oh, you have that one too? Like, oh wow, okay, this makes sense.
Join the club, we have jackets.
Oh yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I got that from Shrek. I can't take credit for that one. That was a childhood inner child thing. But so it's really fascinating for me, because I've been reflecting so much, especially this past weekend. Since, we were both in the electronic music world. This is why it's so great that we're in this world together. I was a music journalist when you were DJing, and
love EDM.
Yeah. Peace, love, EDM. Oh, yeah. Oh, the days. And I started that like in school. Like I started that at Chapman through Coachella. It was like, I remember it was like a marketing project that I had to do with Mir, and we had to do like internet marketing. And I started a blog about like our generation, and I wrote a whole thing about Coachella, blah, blah, blah. And so the fact that like Coachella was just this past weekend out here, and even just the passing of Avicii, and just seeing, I think that was the first like massive death of the community we grew up in, and the community I'm still pretty active in. I'm still teaching at festivals and things like that, but definitely have evolved in that space. But it was the first like massive death of someone whose art really helped people heal and go through a lot. Like, even before he passed, I was listening to like his Armin van Buuren remix of Drowning, like that's been on my Spotify playlist as like, oh, just feel good. Like that's like a feel good thing. And having these these tracks and these songs that are just like, you close your eyes, and I just close my eyes and I see myself back at like that rave, or like back with like the back corner of Sahara tent with all the Chapman people. Like, you know, we have those moments. And so, I know for you, you've shifted. I mean, you talked about it earlier. And how has that experience been for you to see someone who is, you know, who paved a massive road for a lot of people, someone who's my age, who's transitioned, who got caught up in a very unhealthy lifestyle? Because that's when he got really sick. He was partying a lot, and he admitted time and time again. And he's been sick, you know. How has this whole thing, like, how do you really reflect on how much growth you've had since like really being in the community in the beginning to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, when I heard about his passing, I was like, whoa. It was kind of a trip, because I mean, I knew he had issues and with drinking, and he had his pancreas removed and all this stuff. And when I had met him, we played with him like back in 2011, and like he did have this kind of like dark sort of heaviness energy.
Yeah.
You know, so I was taken aback, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that if you think about it, it's so outside of the realm of like what's natural to humans, you know, to be glorified, because his music is amazing. It was so good. And to be put in that light where you're just like this idol, and you are put on a pedestal, and people don't treat you like just a regular human, like they either want something from you, or like you're just like this icon. You end up being in these environments that are just so out of alignment with like with your human nature, right? Bouts of isolation, depression, lots of substances, dark energy, so much traveling, like insane amounts of traveling. Your sleep schedule's fucked. You have no sort of amount of like consistency of diet and sleep. It's just a recipe for disaster. Absolutely. And then people are just constantly trying to feed you drugs and alcohol, and you know, girls want to sleep with you. It's dark. And it's no wonder why a lot of these, you know, DJs and people are speaking out about the challenges and the dangers of that industry, you know. And it's also so passionate about serving that market, you know.
I hear you.
Yeah, I'm actually going back in and serving top 50 DJs. Like that's my thing right now, and I'm really passionate about it because the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the conversations I've had with some of these guys is like, there's no one for them to talk to about it, nor does anyone have the tools, nor someone that's been through it. And what really hit me in meditation was like, in terms of like world impact, which is what you're after and what I'm after, and like helping to initiate change, what better way than to help these influencers activate and align and use their music as a platform to
consciously
sort of to be bigger than their music and just be a force of like good in the world, right? Like before they can do that, they have to get right within themselves.
Yeah, because then it's projected out, and it's just their natural radiance and of who they are. And that's something that I tapped into a couple times with meditation too, to help support. Because you know, I've been having a lot of strong, like vivid images of me interviewing DJs when I used to, and just like being in those spaces and seeing how I am contributing in a way now where I'm teaching at these festivals and holding space in that way, bringing Kundalini yoga and sound healing, and also bringing like my friends Feather and Dot that I DJ with. They make electronic mantra music, but they also have very much of that very Burning Man, like tribal house kind of very grounding kind of vibe. And so we've created this whole ascension thing that is really helping people just like get back to awaken that life force within, because there are so many blocks that not just specifically in the community, but as a whole, as like society, that we have that are stuck in that lower triangle too, which are, you know, Because if you think about it, when you're done with school, that is literally when you're out of college, that is the end of your solar plexus being developed. And then the heart starts being developed like around 22. So that foundation that you are building your life on is literally, it really starts to kick off after college, because you're in that space, and that's the foundation, the lower triangle. If the lower triangle is not balanced, you cannot live in your heart space. So if we are constantly holding on to so much grief and sorrow and depression and disappointment and all those things from those years when we don't even know who the fuck we really are, and we're still holding on to that, that's going to be bleeding into our future, into our work, into our art, into our existence. And so I really appreciate the work you're doing. And I think that was the other thing too, is that so many of these DJs now that are like 30s and stuff that were doing it, they started when they were like 20, because you could have been a musician at like traveling the world at like 23, you know, and like doing the thing, and you don't know who you are. It's just all shiny.
Totally. Yeah. And what a great place. I mean, I can speak to this because this is kind of an experience I have, and I know it's the same way in the industry, but for a lot of these guys, like, think about Avicii. Like, to be that good at making electronic music, you have to spend a lot of time holed up in a little studio basement with not being social. And there's a lot of this thing that happens, I feel like, where these kind of socially, I mean, this is a little
socially awkward
hyperbole here, but these socially inept kind of like computer nerds who make really good music get thrown out into this rock star thing, and it's like you're glorifying there's alcohol, and it's like, oh cool, like I'm insecure, but like if I be this thing, then I can be like loved, you know? It's like I'm loved when I'm this performer person.
Yeah, but if there's still a lot of that trauma in the lower triangle.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is that we are living in a time where we're not supposed to be in isolation. We are supposed to be in communities, and we are supposed to be here gathering. We're supposed to be connecting with each other. So the more we isolate, that's something I'm really realizing a lot being in Joshua Tree, like the isolation, that I'm like, whoa, I can't do this for too long. I need to make sure I am going back and forth to either LA or San Diego or just like wherever, and like see people. Granted, I'm building a community here, but being a kapha, like I have to have fire to like really help use that fuel and to still be active and things like that. And so I love what you guys are doing with Man Cave too, and how you're really creating this like sacred container and this sacred space for men to be able to express and to connect, because again, like it's been such a taboo, and recent cultures, it's so not what it was like from the ancestors. Like there were rites of passage, and there were the rituals and the gatherings and things like that. But through modern era, that was like everyone kind of isolated, and was like there aren't those rites of passages and those rituals like there used to be, and even those are shifting now. Mm-hmm. So what has been your experience, or what was the call that you guys really heard to really start to create Man Cave and to hold this space and to allow men to feel like not only are they seen and not only are they heard, but that they're supported, and that they can express who they are and cry if they need to, and all the juiciness that is okay to be human?
Yeah. Well, it's a great question. And it came from within, you know, like for my journey and seeing what I was able to, it's like, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And then you're like, holy crap, like, wow, this has been so impactful for me. And there's so many people who could use this, who are asking for it, but don't know where to go. And so when Preston smiles, he's the one who created the program. And we are building this together. And when he put out the call about what it was, and for the men, what the structure was going to be like, an online program for men to really lean into the inner work and support each other in this conscious brotherhood, I'm like, dude, I'm there for that. How can I support? And like, you know, the other coaches who came in as well, like we're all on the same mission to really bring this out into the world. And I'll share this with you. I can't talk about a lot of what's in the program, but one of the first calls we do when all the men get together on the Zoom call, we have guys from Australia, the UK, America, like all over the world. 50 of us are all on this Zoom call looking at each other's faces. It's the first time we're really getting to know each other. And we start talking about, if you really knew me, you would know. And men share things in that call that they've maybe never told anybody for the first time, that have been carrying for years. And the coaches start off leading by example, and we go deep and like full on. And it's just, everyone gets inspired, and the momentum builds and builds. And by the end of it, I swear, if we did nothing else in that program, I would walk away from that program feeling it was a success, because the amount of openness and like the transmuting of shame or guilt or fear or isolation or aloneness is so powerful and so palpable that these men, there's life before that and there's life after it. Just to see, like, because men, one of the things that we're programmed with is that we need to carry it on our own, and that certain things are not okay to share. And so that just stores and holds, and then we end up passing that pain on to people, whether that's like, you know, like the Me Too stuff that came out. Like, there's just all these things that like are toxic masculinity that come from the root of just not being in community with other men who got your back and who you can share these things and process with. So it's been a powerful program, and we've gone through 2, and we're launching our 3rd one at the beginning of May. And it's just, this is medicine that needs to get out to the entire world, and that's the plan.
That's why I was like, I need a Ryan on the podcast to talk about this. And I was laughing earlier because I was literally just having this conversation with one of my girlfriends before I jumped on this call, how so many men are afraid to ask for help.
Oh yeah, me too. I am.
Yeah, because they feel like they need to be macho or like the strong one, and like they're afraid to be vulnerable and share like, hey, I need help.
Yeah, it's vulnerable to ask for help, especially if you can be rejected, you know?
Yeah. So that's even a lot of core root, like core pain, core trauma.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You know, you as men, we go through these experiences where we're like, we are vulnerable when we're a kid, or we do something that, you know, we get like shamed or guilt or whatever it is, and then we just stop doing that forevermore after that.
Which is why I feel like even our generation is waiting longer to have children too, is because we are just really making sure like we have our shit together, and it's not some kind of system like, oh, because I reached this stage, I'm supposed to have a kid now. It's like, no, I need to like really feel really solid with who I am before I can bring in this kid. And even just like clear ancestral karma or anything that may have been kind of a program that we grew up with unconsciously or consciously.
Yep. And to be clear, not everyone's doing that, but in our bubble for sure. And
Yeah.
I believe that what's really cool about technology and the internet is that we're all tapped into this like collective hive mind. And so I think a lot of the younger generation is starting to see from people like us sharing our story or on Instagram or whatever, the realness behind the advertising, behind the like cultural conditioning of like, oh yeah, partying and drinking is the shit, and like fucking get a bunch of money and drive a Bentley. It's like people are like, hey, I did that and it's not that cool, and I was actually miserable. Now I sold my shit and I'm living in a van. Dope. Right? So, oh, get out of here with that, you know?
Let me tell you through experience, it's not that cool.
Yeah, and yeah, let me tell you myself, right? And like, and here's the thing is that you know, the reason why I feel like the reason why the younger generation, and ourselves included, are so passionate about living with purpose and making an impact is, you know, in terms of like a balanced system. If you call the world a balanced system, anytime something goes out of alignment or out of harmony, other pockets need to adjust to keep the balance.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just feel that just the earth needs a shift. And that's why so many of us are showing up and are like, or even young kids are like, hey, I don't know why, but I really want to be a healer, or I want to serve, or I want to like do this thing with plastic in the ocean, right? It's just like, it's loud and clear in all of our faces what needs to be done.
Dude, like I look at these 21-year-olds now that are like so in tune. I was like, fuck, dude, if I had that knowledge at 21, I can't even imagine. But at the same time, like all of it has been perfect. It's all unfolded as it should. But like there are these kids, and like that's the other thing too, is that so many of these kids are from a whole new fucking millennia. Like these are like kids from a new millennia. Straight up.
Yeah. It's awesome. I'm looking forward to the future, especially as like the old systems like die out. It's just
Yeah.
gonna take.
Yeah. Because there's definitely like two stories that are going on right now. There's one that's like really, really dark and like really intense and really like reptilian, like intense, lower frequency, vibrational. And then there's one where it's like, dude, the light is winning and there is community happening. There is love really coming at the forefront, really guiding. Things are shifting to be in alignment with benevolent truth. There's like these two stories. And then we also have the choice as to what we are able to believe. I think that's like we're holding so much space for our parents and their generation too.
Yeah, I'd like to maybe speak to that. Just share my take on it. You know, I went through a kind of a dark period in my awakening where I was like learning about reptilian overlords and fucking like the black hole on YouTube of like conspiracy theories and all that. And I was like, it was crazy. It was fucking crazy. And like, there's some really cool stuff and fascinating stuff in there. And then I realized that like, wait a minute, this is like a lot of fear that I'm like holding on to and creating these stories about, and it actually has no basis in my reality. And if we're creating our reality and it all comes from consciousness and I am the one, right? Then like, it's just a figment. It's just an illusion. It's just this piece. And like, what can I actually focus on and create? And I feel like the dark story and the light story are two sides of the same coin. It's all part of the oneness. And whatever we put our focus on is what we will see and get and be reflected back. So space, just like I feel like you are, where it's like we're focusing on the light, and I can look at the perspective of the darkness or of the systems in our society that are not
the absence of light.
Yeah, I can see it for what it is. Like, if they're doing their best with what they're given, what they have, and everyone at the very end of the day is doing the best they can. They all think they're making the best decision, and just because it's not ours, it's okay. You know?
And that's where that's an opportunity for you to see how much you've grown, and you are like, may you be blessed. That's like my favorite, like just bless. There's nothing I can do. Like everyone's going to have to figure it out on their own, which is part of what I've had to really heal is that martyrdom. Like I'm the one that's going to fix everything. It's me. That like Messiah complex stuff, you know, that you have when you first really start on this awakening path. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'm the one. It's me. And then I'm like, that is way too much to put on my fucking plate. 1, 2, like, no, I want to live my life and I'm going to choose to live my life. But I appreciate the people out there who I'm collaborating with that are like doing the work in a way of just like being in integrity and like being able to hold space and being able to be compassionate and being able to be love and recognize when those people are thinking in that mindset, like, oh, I feel for them, like the compassion, right? It's like, oh, it's sad.
Yeah. Holding them in love. And here's the thing too, is that like nothing's broken.
Yeah.
Person's broken and the world's not broken. It doesn't need to be fixed or saved, I believe.
Yeah.
It's all perfect, and it's all part of its journey of evolution, right? You don't look at the like acorn sprout and go, oh, it's broken. It's not this acorn tree. It's just it's a snapshot of the journey. And like, we have a plastic situation on the planet, and it's all good. It's pulling out parts of our character for us to like see what we value about the earth and like, you know, oh, ritual. We're missing ritual in our culture. It's like, oh yeah, we forgot. Let's do that again. You know.
It's just a Snapchat to see like, okay, this is what has been going. We have an opportunity to choose again. So how are you going
to choose? 100%. And I look forward to the day when our grandkids are looking at pictures of our society and being like, I can't believe you guys used to sit in traffic for 4 hours driving your own car. And you go to the bar and drink alcohol and like think it was okay to drive it, and like you dug up this black shit from the earth and like powered your car because you didn't know where you were going to get energy from, but there's a fucking sun in the sky all the time and it's free. Are you fucking kidding?
It's already happening.
I know. Or you're like, I know, like, oh, I know.
Yeah, humans, they're so funny.
Evolution, baby.
Yeah, beautiful. For sure. I was just telling one of my girlfriends, I was like, honestly, like, I feel so grateful to be alive during this time and to be like in the age that I am during this shift and this time. Because I'm like in my Saturn return, so I'm just seeing what isn't working anymore. And I'm just like, bye, bitch. Like, this is changing. Like, cool. You served its purpose. Thank you for giving me the grit and for allowing me to be the sage and to like be that owl medicine of the wisdom, because I know both sides, and that's the Gemini in me. I'm mutable. I'm able to see both sides of the coin to recognize it's the coin. I don't, it's beautiful. It's great. But at the same time, it's like being able to have that awareness of what you allow in and being like, no, thank you. May you be blessed.
Yep. That's you're finding your unique medicine.
Yeah. And I just keep seeing this Merkaba around me, which is 60. 60 is sacred geometry. So getting out of the trap of 5D consciousness, because there are actually higher dimensions that we can live in. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to hang out more in 60 and focus more with sacred geometry, and then also working with sound and other things. And that's why life has been lighter too, is just because I'm just trusting.
Fill me in.
But with what?
What's the difference between 60 and 5D? Like what
So 60 is sacred geometry. So you are using codes. It's like codes.
Yeah, but what does that like mean, like in this human experience?
5D is the unity consciousness, but that's been a trap. It's a trap that everyone thinks like that's like reaching attainment is like attaining to 5D consciousness. No, it's higher. There are higher levels to go, because then if you're only at 5D, you're stopping yourself from continuing to evolve higher and to ascend higher.
Well, then obviously there's a 7D and an 8D.
There is, yes. There's up to 13. There's now discovering.
You're telling me the universe capped itself at 13? Bullshit. No way. Infinite. Universe is like, oh no, 13 is good.
Now they're recognizing that there is higher dimensions. There was for so long teaching about 12, but now we're seeing that there's more and more being discovered. Yeah, no, are you kidding? This is a fucking infinite place. Like, no, fuck that. No, for sure.
There'll be a day when like 13, like we're at like 25, 30, 35. And then we realize, wait, it's all just a fucking story in our consciousness.
Yeah, what a great thing to realize, like, oh my God, we're all storytellers. We are all just trying to figure out what the fuck this thing is called life, and how we are grasping our consciousness around it and being like, this is it. And it's like, is it? Is it? Because then there'll be a curveball where it's like, oh, I'm waking up even more than I thought.
Hey, if you could go back and tell like Sabrina at TJ Mansion in college like one thing, what would you tell her?
That you aren't alone. That you aren't alone, and that you are tapped into something that you've always been tapped into, and to not dim your light just because the people around you aren't at that frequency.
Hell yeah.
What would you tell Ryan?
I would say, you got this. Like, it's going to be, the journey's going to be unpredictable, but it's going to take you some wild places, and don't change a single thing.
Yeah, like I said, I just keep visualizing, it makes me choked up. I just keep visualizing me having my difficult LSD trip, and you and me were standing in the far back of at the Sahara stage at Coachella. And I remember just looking at you, and you were like, yeah, we got this. And I was just like so in my head and in my own neuroses, because I was so seeing what was happening of like these very dark energies and these dark forces and within myself that I have neglected, like the love in myself and also in the world. Because I just remember seeing all the trash on the floor and seeing how everyone was like so disrespecting Mama Gaia, and like I would like there was things that people wanted me to do, but it wasn't like in integrity with what I was feeling. And I just remember like I was alone that whole day. But then there was a moment where I was like, I looked over and you're just standing there next to me. And that was the first time I felt like, oh my God, like I'm not alone in this. And I've been thinking a lot about it because my 6th year since that trip was the night of the exorcism that I had. And, you know, Coachella was just this last weekend, and Coachella was the place that I first went to that really, I found electronic music. I found myself. I really found myself. So it's very potent time for me to really reflect on the amount of progress I have made, the people who are in my life and the people who are no longer in my life, and still appreciating them for the season that they contributed to me. But of all, like, of the handful of human beings that are in my life that I am still in this world with, that I feel very connected to, that understand and know me from my past, and you being in that, like, I'm just so grateful and like humbled and so proud of you to see your evolution and to like see that we're doing this together and that I don't have to do it by myself, because I felt like that for so long. Like, oh my God, none of these people fucking understand what I'm seeing. No one knows what I'm going through. I love these people so much, but like, we are on different fucking frequencies and different wavelengths. But like the fact that like I have you, who's like probably of all the people that I went to Chapman with, is probably the only one who's really like on my level in this world that I still talk to, that is like doing this work with me. So I just wanted to say thank you for that, because it's so much of my solar plexus Manipura healing from that. Just really, I'm just so grateful, and I'm just really honored to see your evolution, because I know there's a couple of us and that like I look at and I can tell there's a moment where we're all like in our heads, we're like, what the fuck are we doing? But we're still doing it.
Yeah, I'll never forget when I discovered what you'd been through. It was like I didn't realize, and I found, I don't know how it came into my experience, but I was just like, oh my goodness, like no way, like, and I was so excited because same thing. It was like, we're on the same team, like let's connect about that, you know. It's like so exciting.
Yeah. So I just really wanted to share that, because I know, like, again, I can't do this by myself, and the work that you're doing and working with a lot of other really strong, powerful men to hold space for men, it gives me so much hope and optimism and reassurance that things are truly shifting for the good, and things are really evolving in a way that is perfect. It's all perfect. This is how it's had to unfold. This is how the steps have had to show up to get to this space and to where we're going.
Oh yeah, and that's a beautiful reminder, not just personally in the microcosm, but in the macro of, you know, contrast is such a beautiful teacher.
Yeah.
Like we wish it could just be what we want, but it's like having what we don't want for so long, and the pain of that makes us really understand what we do want and appreciate the having what we want.
And it's so great to see that like you're gonna like really you are supporting men to understand, to like heal that relationship, because like I do not believe in the future is female movement. I don't believe in it at all, because then we're just swinging the pendulum of the complete opposite direction of the patriarchy of what it was. I do believe the future is all inclusive. I've said this time and time again, and we can't be ignoring or denying anyone.
Totally.
Anyone, because then you are just part of the problem, and that idea of separation is just a false illusion.
Yeah, it's like same thing once again, the microcosm macrocosm. It's like operating from incompleteness instead of completeness, you know, like all those pieces that are ignored, whether they're people or races or sexual orientations, all that stuff, like they all have a superpower to add to the collective, but if they're shunned, then they can't add to the collective.
Yeah,
we're fucking ourselves.
You're missing the point of what this experience of life is about.
Yeah, like you don't go into the Amazon rainforest and you're like, this is all beautiful except for these green plants over here. These aren't okay, and let's point at them and say that they're not allowed here and make a big fuss, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, what a beautiful analogy. Yes.
What are you talking about?
It was amazing. That was a great analogy.
That what's allowed to be there and what's not allowed to be there.
Oh, I love you.
Yeah.
So, oh, I love you so much. Okay, so I want to ask a few lightning round questions that I like to ask at the end of each of my episodes. What would you say are some of your strong spirit guides right now?
Ooh. So I've never been one to identify with spirit guides, but I would say Mother Nature and Mother Nature in contrast.
Yes.
Yeah, contrast with my lower self, living things out and realizing it's not serving me.
Yes. Okay, what would you say is the one book that completely changed the trajectory of your life?
Great question. I love it's a classic, The Power of Now, right?
Yeah.
I remember reading that. It was on my toilet. I think John Goshen gave it to me in college, or his mom gave it to him, and he didn't read it. It was on my toilet. Remember, remember thumbing through it and going like, "What is this guy?" Like I was trying to understand, but I was like, "What is he talking about?" And then I read that book like 7 or 8 times at this point, and it's one of my favorites. It really just drops me into that like existential present consciousness.
Did you know how I found the power of now? I don't
No.
think I told you. I was in Thailand with Taylor O'Sullivan, and it was in the hostel because like at hostels, a whole bunch of people leave their books.
Totally.
I got the Australian copy of The Power of Now before my 24th birthday.
That's amazing. What a gift.
And I read it on the whole train going up to Laos, like the night train. And I was with Taylor. Yeah.
What was your initial reaction as you were digesting it?
My initial reaction was like, oh my God. Like I was feeling a lot of shifts in my life. It was just a lot of shifts and a lot of things. Cause that was let's see, that was in May. So it was about like 10 months, 9 months since I was struck by lightning. So it was a lot.
You were struck. I always forget that for some reason, and every time you say it, I'm just like, "Oh my goodness, that's right." What a like, wow, what a fucking journey.
Yeah, dude, that's like having this conversation with you, and like I'm saying, I see you, I see what you've gone through, and I know you see like my shift. Fuck, like.
But yeah,
If you guys even knew me when I was in school, I mean, I was like obnoxious and I was the stoner who would just bring weed everywhere and just like, hey, let's blaze it up. Like, I got the weed. Where the weed at? I got the weed. We got a 5-foot bong here. Like, hey.
yeah, like yeah, you were like this like loud, like sort of like a loud personality that like want like I don't know how to describe it. Like it was almost like you're part of the mob or something. Which I mean, that might be sensitive. I know that some of that might be true. So, but you told me.
I'm on the love mob.
Now you're on the love mob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love you so much. By the way, we keep talking about this TJ mansion. It was our friend's house that was like the sickest house near school, but it was the only house that the parties never got broken up.
Yeah. It was legit. Shout out to Orange for holding space for all of our shenanigans.
Yeah, thank you, Orange. Thank you, Chapman. Yeah, I used to make dinner there like every week, and like we'd watch movies, and
it was baller. The house was baller.
The house was baller. Ryan would bring the decks, and he'd DJ, and yeah.
That's right. Oh my God. Wow. Shout out to Alex Lucas.
Shout out to Alex Lucas. Yeah.
Totally.
Oh, I love this. Okay. So we've been talking so much about younger selves. What is another thing you would say to younger Ryan today?
I really come from like the only thing I'd ever say, and it's the same thing I said before, is like it's just like encouragement of like you got this. Like keep listening to your intuition and trusting yourself, because like I don't believe in going back and telling him to do something different, because it's all served me and led me to here. But I just want to let him know that it all works out, and that when I listen to my intuition, everything always goes right. Not right, but it feels better.
It feels aligned.
Yeah.
That way.
Yeah.
Yes. So what is one thing you would like to see as a result of Man Cave happen in the world?
I would love for there to be, well, Yeah, I would just love for there to be some sort of program that men around the world can look to and see as a sort of foundational training program to equip them to show up better for themselves, their partners, their friends, their family, and the world at large. You know, like a standardized sort of thing that they can like lean into, because I feel like that's kind of missing. And more, I just want men to feel supported and in community with one another in an authentic way.
I'm just feeling that right now. It's so beautiful. I pray for that, and I hold that vision.
What's been really powerful is that men have expressed that having just the container of men to come into and to process through your stuff with men who get you and who have your best interests at heart, it's so powerful and so healing, and it also enables you to be such a more powerful partner, because a lot of, especially in conscious relationships, I went through this, you're so in the work and about doing the work that you end up processing everything with your partner, and it kind of like kills the polarity, and you're just like muddying up the space. And what's been powerful is like if you have able to process it with your boys, conscious men, you can go back into the relationship and actually be a really powerful like partner for your woman, and you don't need her to like hold space for you necessarily, because women will say that they're like, oh, I want him to share his feelings with me, all this stuff, and yes, that's kind of true, and at the end of the day, what you really want is you want your man to be able to show up powerfully for the both of you, and if he can do that by exposing parts of himself with his man, he doesn't have to do that with you, it actually serves the relationship.
Yeah, this is why even with women too, it's like women need more women that they can share with too, so that the partners can come together as strong. Yeah, I'm seeing that so much right now. And my prayer is that, more conscious men find their tribe of conscious men to support each other, to go into that space, because it's important for relationships today.
Oh yeah.
Most definitely. So thank you for doing that work. Okay, so if there's one thing you wanted to share that we haven't really hit yet, what would it be that you would want the audience and whoever's listening to hear?
I feel like we covered quite a gamut. I feel really complete.
Well, what is one word of advice you would have?
Oh, word of advice. Oh,
yeah.
To get someone listening?
Yeah.
No matter what you're going through, or how tough it might feel, or how alone you might feel in your own journey and your work, just know that at the core of it all, we're all going through the same human experience. The content of our lives is vastly different, but the base emotions and the feelings we all share are the same. And no matter what community I drop into, or what workshop or authentic relating circle and what part of the world, it's all the same shit. Like, no one has it figured out. Everyone's doing the best they can. Everyone's going through some really tough shit. And for those of us who are brave enough to open up about it and talk about it, that is the most healing and connecting work one can do.
Yes. Okay. So where can we find you? Where can we learn more about Man Cave? Tell them about the special offer.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Man Cave, if for those of you who are men who are listening, or even if you're a woman and you know a man who would benefit from this work, we're about to launch our third round of Man Cave on May 12th. Applications close on May 7th, I believe. And so if you want to check that out, see what it's about, see if it's a fit for you, I'd go to the link that we're going to share
in the show notes.
In this transcript, right?
Yeah, in the show notes. Mm-hmm.
Is that right, Sabrina?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So there'll be a link in there, and if you use the code that's attached, you can save yourself $150. And you can that'll also go to supporting the Sovereign Society podcast. So it's a win-win-win.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. Get involved with that. And then for those of you who want to just follow my journey and see what I'm about, especially as I start to share more content and, you know, I like to share my journeys and my travels, and I do a lot of lives around concepts and just kind of share nuggets. You can find me on Instagram at soul, SOUL _Panther.
The evolution.
Yeah, from Sex Panther to Soul Panther. Too good. It's too good.
Oh, the evolution of this man. Ryan is one of my favorite people on the planet, like real talk, not just because I'm like on the phone with him right now. He's been one of my favorite people on the planet. So when he was like, yeah, let's do this podcast. This was even before I was like really thinking about changing the name and really bringing the men on. I was like, it's a good idea. I don't know. But I was limiting myself before just being sovereign goddess. I was like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to fucking play small. Like, I want to have dope ass conscious cosmic dudes on here. So it's happening. So thank you for being you. Thank you for going down memory lane with me and for showing up in such a beautiful way for so many men and for the evolution of humanity and the work you're doing. And I just appreciate you and I honor you and I love you from the bottom of my heart. I love you so much. And I'm so excited to see how this journey is continuing to unfold for us, because we've been through it. We've been through it.
And we're just starting.
And we're just scratching the surface.
100%.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure and an honor and so fun to just kind of like, we haven't had the experience to drop in for like an hour and really start to connect all the dots and to kind of like align our codes and see like where our realities are kind of, you know.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. That was fun. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks everyone for listening. Go check out Man Cave, check out Ryan. If you loved this interview and this conversation, leave a review on iTunes. I'm giving away my free sadhana ebook. It's valued at $39 to help you start to cultivate daily practices, to start to align and activate to your fullest and most authentic potential. And yes, and your reviews help bring us up. And so thank you for the love. Share it with the men in your life that just really need to hear that they aren't alone and that they've got this, and everything else of whatever inspired you, please feel free to share with us. We're super stoked to have you here. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.
I want to hear, if you're listening to this part, you made this far, write your biggest takeaway from this podcast in the comments. I'd love to just see what that is for each of you.
Thank you, Ryan. Yes, share your biggest takeaway. What was the big aha you had? And you can leave that on my website at sabrinariccio.com. And so the links for the show notes are also in that, where you can keep it going or share on Facebook, or also join the Sovereign Society Facebook group. We've got that going on, and that's been super fun too. So thank you, everyone. And we'll see you soon.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.